Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to check out the brand new Tenable Knives Anomaly. Tenable Knives, if you don't know, is Kansept's more budget inside, and the Anomaly along with the Prometheus are the first two that I've checked out. I got to handle a lot of them at Blade Show, and I like a lot of what I saw. This right here is a Dirk Pinkerton design, and it's called the Anomaly because this is definitely a departure from the designs we're used to seeing from Dirk. We have his interpretation of a folding Quaking design. I've always loved the Quaking. I don't know, just something about it. It's just aesthetically pleasing. It's not my go-to blade shape for EDC, but I definitely can appreciate it. This is a super lightweight, medium-sized EDC knife coming in at 7.12 inches long. It's got a 3.08 inch, like I said earlier, Quaking style blade of Nitro V stainless steel. My particular variation has a black wash finish. However, if you're not into the black wash blades, there are options with, I don't know if it's satin or stone wash. I'll pop it up on the screen now, but there's several different variations. I think there's a jade G10, a black G10. Both of those have 9-coated blades, and then they have the blue micarta like I have, and some other options. You can also get it in the same profile, but with a Tanto blade, depending on what you like best. I prefer the Quaking style blade over the Tanto. That's just me. And I don't know, is that considered a Quaking Tanto? I don't know how they classify the Quaking blades. So let's take a closer look at this. We have a somewhat of, like I said, upswept blade here. It's got kind of like a slicer grind. You have a little bitty portion of flat all the way in the back. Then it goes into a full flat grind. You got a nice point right there for piercing. You're not going to really be able to do detail cuts with that unless you want to sit up at a 90-degree angle. But for piercing into a bag of potato chips, this can be perfect for that. For me, if I'm going to be doing a drag cut, I'm just going to use that belly, put it into whatever, and then pull back. Still works just fine. You just won't be able to do that fine detail work like you could with a low tip drop point or something like that. There is no jimping up top. However, it's a pretty nice flat spot to rest your thumb. We'll see if no jimping causes any issues whenever I do the testing. You do have a sharpening choil, and you should get a few sharpenings before it'll widen up. They did bring the plunge all the way back to about, I don't know if you can see where my fingernail is, about right there. I sharpened this knife up after I was done with the testing. Of course, I would have liked a little bit bigger of a sharpening choil because I did find I was starting to hit that side of the plunge with my fixed angled system. Luckily, if I want to open it up myself, I can because it has an internal stop pin. And one thing I like right off the back with this one is it's ground nice and thin, especially in this portion up to about right here to where that belly goes up to that tip. But from about right here back, it's around 14 thousandths behind the edge, and then it transitions to about 22 thousandths going closer to that tip. And this particular knife was sharpened at 20 degrees per side. I absolutely love that. You know, so many companies here lately, whenever I start doing testing, I check the edge bevels, and a lot of them are at like 24 to 26 degrees per side. For a pocket knife, I just find that to be super, super thick. So it was very, very nice to see a 20 degree per side edge bevel. And I will say this one sharpened up very easily. The Nitro V got stupid sticky sharp. Well, speaking about the edge, let's see what this one can do. Being this is my first Tenable knife to test, I'm pretty interested to see how it does. I like me some Nitro V, very similar to 14C and AEBL. It's a tough steel. It can take a razor sharp edge, and it can take a very nice toothy edge too. That's what I tend to like. But the edge that came out of box, I would call it good. It feels like it's got good geometry to it. I'll test that in the actual review, but yeah, slicey. And one thing I noticed right off the back, if you're going to be doing some slicing, like breaking down boxes and stuff, you just got to shorten the stride. I was doing kind of push cuts most of the way, just because you have pretty much all belly to this knife. So I did find myself, whenever I tried to do a normal, natural slicing motion, I was sliding out of the cardboard. But that's to be expected. Now we're testing the ergos, and at this point, it's nice. The handle's fairly neutral, and I got a really, really good purchase on it, good grip. So we started increasing the pressure more and more, and it was comfortable all the way until I lifted up. And when I lift it up, I'm really bearing down into that wood just to see if there's anything uncomfortable. And I did notice at the very back top of the scales, it was a little uncomfortable. Wasn't terrible or anything, but just something to note. Now, the edge doesn't feel like it has a super aggressive toothy edge per se, but it's sharp. It's doing, I call it a good job. It's definitely not to where I feel like I should shut it down now. I've done that in the past. And I tried the front portion toward the tip. That's the easiest, to do, or right where that belly starts. That's usually my sweet spot, so where I stay, because that's the most comfortable when doing those downward cuts into the sisal rope, being that I'm exerting the most force whenever I do this type of cutting. And I'll have to measure it for the review, but it feels like the front portion is a decent bit thicker. Right where that belly starts, it feels like there's a change there. And I mean, I think most Quakens, that's, how it is, kind of like the Tonto blade shape, to where you have a reinforced tip area. But I'm trying my best to stay, either right in front of that forward portion of the belly, or right when it starts to swoop up toward the tip. That I found to be the sweet spot. It's still doing well. I never know what to expect. I never know if it's just going to go dull on me, after 100 cuts or less. That's where I usually bring the Nitro V 14C ABL, unless it's a custom heat treat. I usually bring it to about 130 cuts. And at that point, if it makes it that far, there should not be any crazy damage or anything. I wouldn't think there should be any blunting unless it's got a soft heat treat. But it's doing good. I think I even I can't remember, because I tested 5 knives with this one. I think I might have added a piece of rope to this one, because it felt like either I was cutting in a better spot toward the end of this, or they might have had a burr or something that came off. But it's slicing better now, and we ended up getting through 200 cuts. Definitely could have done more. So as you see, I'm using that belly to do drag cuts. The tip's too high. It just makes it a lot easier. But all your slicing tasks like this one's going to really excel. So if you do a lot of that, if you do a lot of food cutting and stuff like that, this is going to be great for that. Especially Nitro V is a really good stainless steel. It doesn't corrode that easy. And overall, I was happy with the way this one performed. I thought it did everything well, and I can't wait to test another one from Tenable. It was definitely enjoyable to test this one. Now let's look at the deployment of this knife. You have a flipper only deployment. You do not have any jimps there, but I had no issues slipping off of it. Your corners are rounded and chamfered, so you don't have any sharp spots. And the detent, perfect. It's riding on ceramic bearings, and it's a nice smooth action, a controlled drop. I have not taken this one apart. I'm sure if I took it apart and cleaned it and lubed it myself, I'm sure it'd probably be a complete fall shut knife. But very nice action. And that flipper tab for me isn't uncomfortable or anything. And another thing I like about the Quaken design, besides the open aesthetics, is how the blade buries into the handle. It's a nice clean look. Now let's check out this handle. Now mine's the blue micarta. It has this frag texture, and I'm going to tell you right now, this frag texture is super grippy. Now, not uncomfortable to do normal EDC task, but one thing I did notice whenever I was doing the wood carving, that's where I test the ergos, at the very end, whenever I was exerting the most force I could into the wood, I noticed right in here where that edge is, it's not a sharp edge, but just because it's flat scales, you got the frag pattern, it was a little uncomfortable right here. But I mean, I was really bearing down. Nothing I normally do on a day-to-day basis with my EDC knives. You definitely get a ton of traction here. The micarta already has good traction, and then you have that frag pattern that offers even more. Your pivot, you have a Torx T8. Unfortunately, they went with T6 for the 2 scale screws right here. And then you have 2 standoffs in the back, so you're going to have screws underneath here as well. Now, this one is a tip-up deep carry, but it's right-hand tip-up only. They did not inset the clip into the micarta, and the screws are sitting up on top. So they didn't countersink the screws or countersink the pocket clip. Not the end of the world. Then this is a budget-in knife, but I would have loved to see that at least. And then there's no flat spot on top of this frag texture micarta. Goes in and out of the pocket nicely. You do have a good bit of spring. You got enough ramp. You got enough space underneath there. I didn't really have any issues, but you know, that's just a nice touch whenever you see all those things done. One thing that I'm just noticing, I'm not sure why, but if you look on this side, you have all black hardware, black pivot. And for some reason, this screw right here is blue. And then all these are black. Not sure why that was done like that, because you have on this side as well. You should have just kept it all black. Good blade to handle ratio, almost 1-to-1. Can't come in contact in the closed position, neither in the back or at the tip. Check out the inside. You have a bunch of skeletonization on those stainless steel liners on both sides, the lock side and on the show side scale. Flow through construction, so if you need to blow it out with some compressed air or get a Q-tip in there, you can do that. But all that skeletonization, this thing is super light feeling. Coming in at 74.4 grams or 2.62 ounces. That's what I thought. That's outstanding. All right, let's take a look at the lockup now. We're sitting, I'd say, at around 50, maybe even 60%. Access to the lock bar is good. This comes down a little bit lower, and you have a slight chamfer. And for me, it's nice and comfortable to get my finger in there. No problem whatsoever. I have absolutely no up and down play. Now, I don't have any play side to side, but of course, I can flex this because of the thinner liners and the lighter weight knife. I can flex it, but as long as it's not moving in that pivot, I'm okay with that. A-okay there. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the QSP Penguin, which is a hair shorter. I mean, a hair shorter. Then we have the Ontario Wrap Model 2, which is a good bit shorter. 2 excellent size references. We have the Volsteed, is it the Talosaurus? And we have the Civivi Cubit. Both of these are pretty much identical in overall length. Next up, we have the Tenable Prometheus, which is a little bit bigger. And then we have the CJRB Pyrite, which is very similar in overall length. And lastly, we have the Kansept Convict and the CJRB Hectare. Both of these are a little bit bigger. All right, now for my nitpicks and complaints, I would have loved to see the sharpening trawl open up just a little bit more. It'd have been nice to see the pocket clip inset into the micarta along with countersunk screws. And there's no lefty love here. But other than that, I think at the price point, I think these are close to a $60 price point. For that price, I think it's a really good option. If you like the overall aesthetics of the knife, it slices very, very well. It was very comfortable up until, I started really bearing down on this knife, but this doesn't feel like that type of knife. It's got very smooth action, nice and snappy action. It carries really well, and it's super lightweight. You hardly realize it's in the pocket. And being the first Tenable knife that I've tested, I really enjoyed using this one. I thought it performed really well. The Nitro V on this one felt just the same as most of the Civivis I've done in Nitro V. So I'll have to test more just to draw a conclusion on it. But other than that, it seemed like it was good to go. I can't wait to hear y'all thoughts on the new Tenable Knives Anomaly. What do y'all think about this new line of knives for Kansept? Do y'all like the name? Do y'all like the design so far? What do y'all think about the Prometheus? If either one of these interests you, I will have it linked down in the description. If you have any questions in particular, feel free to ask me down below. I'll do my best to get back with you. I hope every one of y'all is having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.